Dude, listen, I know absolutely nothing about you guys. I've seen your awesome work, obviously, and I've heard about you from the Oil Stain Boys. Um, and I've got so many questions, primarily about your business, but maybe let's start off a little bit about yourself and maybe the other guys involved and what how you guys got to this point.
Yeah, I mean, those are some pretty big questions. Let's see. So,
Okay, start with one of them.
yeah,
Anyone.
yeah, for sure. So, um, ironically enough, on my end, I studied automotive design at Art Center and connected with all those folks there and wonderful, A-level designers around the world. Um, but in a weird way, I think I kind of started to look at design as a whole. Not so much sequestered into automotive design itself, but just anything and everything. And it wasn't by choice. I think what had happened was um, I had reached out to one of my design heroes from Art Center, which is this guy named George Yu, which I'm sure a lot of us in the community know. And I was surprised to find that he was working at Oakley, which is a sunglass company. And after having a coffee with him, I was able to um, jump into the world of product design, as a lot of my colleagues in the automotive design industry have done. And what I found out was I was very intellectually satisfied as a designer, and I climbed through the ranks, did the whole corporate ladder thing, and my heart kept tugging at me for cars, and so what started with Forma was just an outlet to be able to do cars and products and kind of just do everything as a whole. And for the first several years, Forma was just a design consultancy, um, and we did jobs for all the major OEs and even furniture brands and like weird things like pocket watches or medical devices. So we've done a little bit of everything, um, and yeah, and I just thought it was like a really interesting journey because I was able to tie everything I had learned in product design, come back to automotive, connect the network of amazing car designers that I've come to know, and we were just doing this thing as a moonlighting fun thing. Um, and what happened was I ended up getting a G Series 930 um, as I was, you know, getting to be the design lead at Oakley, and
Jesus, wow.
ended up, we got a machine, a CNC machine, and started, dicking around on it, and um, came out with the key. And it wasn't really like an effort to monetize. It was just something where we all thought, man, like there's just something missing here. And as automotive designers, as product designers, it just felt like something we wanted to improve on, and it became a natural thing because a lot of people just started to want it in our circle. So I don't know. Our creation comes from being car designers, trying to become enlightened as just overall designers, dipping our toes in every little industry, and then just having fun with our lives, and that kind of transforming into an opportunity for a business where we can continue to have fun and be involved in all sorts of awesome fun cars and events. And it's such an awesome thing because we get to be plugged into this world that we love so much in as massive of a way as possible through something really special and unique to us. So it's just, all the stars are in alignment there.
I had no idea about your Oakley background. I mean, I don't know anything about you, but I thought I understood that you guys actually worked as car designers before. So it's really interesting that you've kind of, I guess you started in a kind of with the ambition to go into cars, and then you went into product, and you've kind of almost come full circle in a way.
Yeah, I totally came full circle. And I don't know, it's like this weird thing where maybe there's, a little bit of a chip on my shoulder. By the time I was graduating, I had, Oakley was supporting my education and I did like a crazy large scale race car thing. Because the thing is at Oakley, it was all ex Mercedes designers there. My boss, Nick Garfias, he was a 17-year design manager at Carlsbad. So it was
Wow.
just like a bunch of legit OG car guys. And I was getting this, curated automotive design discipline in an environment that was maybe not as serious or pressing. So I felt really fortunate, and I guess not having so much of the concern over reality when I was graduating, because a lot of my colleagues, um, you have to show that you're well rounded, right? You have to show some understanding that you can be on package, understand the science and engineering behind things and the reality of manufacturing, and be able to put out a great concept, a great design, and in conjunction, maybe flex a little bit creatively and show that, oh, you can bring some edge to this world. But for me, I just went at it like, well, I think this is a fun path. And I've been in cars my whole life. I grew up in a garage because my dad ran a garage. But I was like, I might take the jump. Like, let's see what happens. So I ended up doing this crazy Oakley, floating frictionless race car. I basically just imagined like what would happen if F1 didn't have rules up until now, and we can implement all the world's current technologies. Did this like crazy maglev race car thing, and I just didn't care. And ironically enough, when I was graduating, it wasn't my intention, but I had quite a few offers from like all the major automotive companies. And then I just ended up kind of staying at Oakley because it became a family of mine, and I get to be surrounded by all these OG Mercedes designers and do fun products and be surrounded by cool cars. So it kind of like it worked out. But like I said, and like you said, it came into full circle, and I had a chip on my shoulder. I still wanted to be involved with cars directly, and I would have never thought it would have come in through this way, where now I get to come back to studios, but instead of talking to the design teams, I'm talking to like, the head of marketing and, all of the fanfare around the car world, the romantic part of the car world. So I don't know. Again, like not master planned or anything. I'm not that smart, but just kind of plugging along, enjoying my life.
Well, Daniel, I mean, I'm South African, and back in the '90s, especially, I think it was probably like that in the States as well. Like, Oakley was like a fucking big deal. So I was like a proper beach kid, and I was like, it was probably arguably one of my favorite brands ever. Like, I used to have a pair of E-wires back in the day. I don't know if you know what they are, but
I know what those are. Yeah,
yeah,
they came back.
dude, those were like my prized possession. I mean, it was such a cool. I used to have like an Oakley. I got like this. I went to the local printers and got them
Yeah,
to make me a custom like Oakley sticker to stick on my board, because we just didn't get those in South Africa, and I kind of made it like myself on computer with. I think like Paint or Microsoft Paint or something like that, but dude, like that must have been a really cool job. I've heard actually from a friend of mine that I worked with here in Potsdam, who studied at Art Center as well, that like Oakley was like a really cool place to work. Like
Yeah.
as you've just said, like it was a lot of fun. Apparently, like guys would go surf at lunchtime, and I mean, I don't know if it's over romanticized or not, but it sounded like a lot of fun.
Oh, it's not over romance. I was certainly absolutely positively spoiled working there. I mean, like running my own business now, there's quite a bit of benefit to that, but it also, like in hindsight, it lets you see everything that you were taking for granted. And Oakley has just such a great work culture for one. You're right. Every lunch we'd go out. It's situated on this like hill and foothill ranch, so there's like all these mountain biking trails. So like either you were surfers or mountain bikers, and some like road cyclists, and everyone would kind of have their little tribe, and you'd go out at lunch for an hour or two and just rip on it, and it's super fun. And I don't know, there's something about working on designs where you could see the effect of your efforts. um, and there's not to say that that doesn't happen with just form factor or vehicles, but I don't know, like there are certain companies that are positioned where I feel like designers are given um, not more control, but just more space to propose and drive ideas. And there's just a commonality on it. Like, maybe the Tesla guys will understand, the Nike guys will understand, and Oakley was like one of those companies where if you brought an idea to the table, and it was new, and there were unproven technologies or manufacturing methods, and you're trying to solve something that hasn't been solved before, they were a great catalyst for it, and they were encouraging of it. And you had the resources to, oh, I want to try this, and you have athletes to try things on, or the model shop, or the R&D, or like the advanced engineers. You can bend their ear and make things happen, and that's, I think, what made my time there so enjoyable, and I would say relatively successful, was because I had that freedom. I wasn't just a number in a corner being told to work on a brief. If I could shape the brief to be better, I could, and the team could, and that was what was so fun there. Um, Not to mention the perks, right? It's pretty rad when you work on a snow goggle or something that has a new technology. You pair up with your engineers and you know jump to Chamonix or something in Europe to do a ski run to make sure everything's working correctly.
Oh shit! Like that's oh yeah, of course. That's obviously it's a requirement, right? You have to go and
Yeah,
ski. You have to go to the French Alps to go and test this out.
dude. So we hire car designers on the team. I continued that tradition, and sometimes like you don't have to be a fit guy to be a car designer, but when you're working at Oakley, it's probably a good idea to like get into shape and become an athlete, right? In some form, so you can be a better designer yourself. So I just remember, I just remember just taking the team on mountain bike rides, or just bringing new experiences to them. Let's just say it that way. And um, it's a really funny way, because we're basically like, we'd haze the designers, and then by the end of the year, like everyone kind of ends up being super healthy and fit. But in the beginning, it was always like a point to show like, hey, you could be healthier, you could be more fit, and we would go do something crazy or fun and juice them out. And I don't know, that was the best. And you're right, it helps a lot to be able to go on test trips and drive product innovation. Like there was a time where I had come back from Europe for like a mountain biking helmet design or something, that had just launched. And as soon as I came back, there was another pressing snow project, but it was the middle of summer. So the only place that had snow was Patagonia, Argentina. because
Oh my
their
God.
hemispheres are flipped, like you guys, right? So
Yes.
um, yeah, we just flew over in the middle of summer, and then in 2 days there was a snowstorm. It dumped like 5 feet of snow. It knocked the electricity out in the whole city, but my God, like, and that was so fun. That was like the craziest snow experience I've had, and we were able to get our projects done and design good product and help people continue to enjoy their lives, and then everyone makes money on top of that. Like everything's like, win 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 win. So it was a great experience, and I don't regret how I took that path. Like there's still some part of me that's like, ooh, what would have happened if I took one of the 15 offers to go work for a car company? But now I feel like it was the right progression for me to do what I'm doing now. And I'm super grateful for that and grateful for the opportunities.
Dude, there's absolutely, I can't stress this hard enough. There's absolutely everything to be said for being happy in your job and being fulfilled. And it
Yeah.
sounds like you had every single one of those things in bucket loads. And not that I want to hate on the car industry, but I doubt you would have had as much fun in a car company, regardless of where it was. I mean, it's there's some great places to work. Don't get me wrong, and I guess especially in California. But
Mm.
I somehow doubt, that you would have had as much fun as what you did at Oakley.
Yeah. Hey, sorry, could you hear the air compressor, by the way?
Don't worry about it. It's okay.
Okay, sorry about that. Give me like 2 seconds. Let me unplug it real quick.
No problem. No problem.
Yeah, I mean, to respond to what you were saying, I've thought about it a lot, and I think I think what it is that, more than being fortunate with the opportunities or the steps that I was able to take to be in my position now, I think throughout school and throughout my career, um, it was important for me to think about who I was and genuinely just being aligned to that. And I think that's what I see a lot with designers. Like there's a struggle to express yourself, and maybe that's a core for a lot of artists and designers. It's a form of identity, right? But I started to realize living my life that the design part, the artistic part, the way that I was given these eyes and this brain and the way that I see and understand the world, um, those are skill sets, but not necessarily my core identity or the things that I believe in or the things that make me happy, right? At my core, I like to do things that maybe bring impact to people or impact to the world. And when I listen to my core, the vessel of the opportunity, it can be flexible. And I think that was a big realization for me, because when you look on paper, I'm like a car guy, like car. I've owned like all these cool cars, and that's like where I throw all my money at, and financially super stupid. I grew up in the garage, like I was near all these cars every day. I drew since I was 3. I drew cars since I was 3. Like everything is a Lego block building to this culmination that I should be this automotive designer. Um, but yeah, like I said, I think that my gratefulness and the joy of where I am now, it's because I didn't have the hubris or ego to say that I have to be here to be happy. Because that if and then mentality, like if I get this, then I will be there, then I will be happy. it's just so destructive, especially for, I feel like, designers, because we're emotional beings that tie our output to our value, and all the things that shouldn't be right, but we do that, so I don't know, it's getting real existential, but
No, but those are important. Those are really relevant and important things to talk about. I mean, you know, on the subject of identity, that I I got a message. I got a message from a young guy, literally a couple of days ago, and he
yeah,
was just saying, how much he's got out of some of the conversations that we've had on this podcast, and that he got into a real, deep dark depression over the last year specifically. I think like primarily during a pandemic, and just with the gloom of like, am I going to be able to get a job and all that sort of stuff. And in the end, he he kind of come out of it, and he's he's in his first job now and everything, and things are looking much better. But I we got into the conversation about how important it is to kind of not have your whole identity tied up into what it is that you do for a living. And I
correct.
seen it so much. Is specifically, I mean, I don't know what it's like in the product world, but like, I think the minute you throw designer onto one's name, whether it be graphic designer, car designer, fashion designer, you get so like, for a lot of us, it's a big achievement, and then you get the temptation is to want to tell the first person, oh, I'm a designer,
Yeah,
and like, if you're not careful, you can get really, really like lost in that, in having your whole identity tied up in what it is that you do for a living, basically. And the problem
yeah,
with that is that and that obviously when things are good, they're really good, but when they're bad, like, my God, that, like, it's really fucking bad.
yeah.
And it
I
can be
feel
really, it's it not only is it sad that that's the only thing that you identify with, but it can be really, really destructive.
hugely destructive. I won't mention any specifics, but in my, relatively short career span so far, um, I've seen a lot of people who have put in 10, 15, 20 years of all of who they are into a company and a brand, and say that there are some things out of their control, like the pandemic, or there's a merger, or they need to downsize. And suddenly, when all that's stripped away from you, you end up seeing what was driving the designers, and like what they were made of. Because I've seen both. I've seen both where your title and your career stripped away from you. You got to almost start over, and it just. I've seen people be completely destroyed, and I've seen people like bounce back and realize, like, man, I was stuck there. I was on pause, and now, like, this was my opportunity to do the next big thing. So I've seen people like go from executive positions of design to like now still doing nothing, because they identified with it so much. And I've seen people who left in a senior or managerial position and just blossom into design giants. And I really think the core of that is like I said, you looking inward as a designer. Like, it's a hard thing to curate and have discipline for, because we're always looking for value, and status is a big part of it. Like, anybody that tells you that, anyone that speaks humbly and says, oh, I just love design and this and that, like, I'm sure a big chunk of it is true, but there's a varying degree of percentage of like, oh, I need to identify with something. I need to identify with some kind of impact, right? And that's the difference, is when you're looking for an achievement or a company to almost validate and give you permission for your value and existence, you're never going to be happy. Even if you make your way to being a chief of some prestigious company, like you're always going to be chasing, okay, what's the next thing that will validate that I am a great designer on this planet? It's the other way, where you're like, hey, what makes me happy as a designer? Like what would make me happy? Like, even if it's doing little things to bring joy to younger designers, all the way to, you know, working on huge technological marvels, like what is it that intrigues you? And I think that's like, I used to tutor a lot, and that's what I would tell people is like, if you like to take what's existing and innovate a little, like there's nothing wrong with that. And if you like to start from scratch and working in a corporate world, you just feel like you keep scratching the surface and you're not creating monumental change, then understand that about your identity, and the opportunity will come to you, versus you trying to find the vessel to pour yourself into. It will come to you. And I think that's like the big moniker in, or almost like at least my life philosophy so far in how to find success. It's like, be true to who you are. And the world has put a scale of measurement on, these are the types of careers that are better, and these are the types of designing that is more valuable, or this is a type of designer who makes impact and who does not. Like, it's all of these things that just distract us from actually thinking, well, who am I? And if I know really well who I am, and I'm aligned to it, and I live my life this way, not only will I make the most effective impact, I will be happier as a person. You know?
Yes, I do know. It's I mean but it's very very relative, and it couldn't be more true. Um, the question would be though, is how do you find that? Like how do you work that out for yourself if you're starting out?
I think that when you're starting out, um, it's a matter of discipline in how you filter the things that you eat. And what I mean by that is, we're constantly consuming, and it's not food, right? But the things that we see, um, we're intellectually consuming, the people that we surround ourselves by, their perspectives on life, philosophies, their opinions, whether we agree with it or not. You know, that's what's coming into our brains. And the most effective thing that I've found to align yourself and to know what you like is simply to just make space for that, to stop sometimes, or to take some time for yourself every morning. Like, dude, I'm totally not this type of person, but when I met my wife and I started meditating and just being able to calm my mind, and how sporadic, just understanding how sporadic my thoughts were, you end up being able to hear that voice inside, you know? And on the flip side here, like, this is so ethereal, but I'll just make it simplified. Um, Anytime that you are thinking about something and you know, oh, this is right or this is wrong, and because of a circumstance or situation you're in, your external action is misaligned from that. Like, ooh, you're thinking deep inside, oh, this isn't right. But you're like, hey, yeah, that makes sense. Great, awesome. You know, how many times does that happen in your life? All the fucking time, all the time. And that's a thing called cognitive dissonance, which again, I learned from my psychology major wife. And that means you're not aligned. You know what's right. You know what you want. You know what's wrong and right, but you're not behaving on it. And you're not living with what you believe. And already, that means your degrees separated from being happy and knowing what you want and attracting the right opportunities to you. Right?
That's some deep shit. That's some deep shit, Daniel.
We're all trying to figure out life, you know?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. You know, I just personally, for me personally, trying to do a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
And just not enough time in the day. We've also got a young family as well. So there's, there just isn't enough time in the day. And what you've just said now is something that, like, it's really hit home with me, because I feel like that a lot. But it's sometimes, it's like, how do you not like, when you are trying to achieve something,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, sacrifices need to be made in, big or small, in the short term to get something in the long term, in a very simplistic sense. And it's difficult to not to confuse that with what you're talking about. Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
I'm sorry, I have a habit of explaining things in the most complicated way possible, but yeah. Do you
No,
understand the
I get it.
question?
I,
Okay,
I
okay.
understand the question. So you're saying, um, okay, there's a format of thinking that is the most pure and aligned with what you want in your heart and what you can do intellectually to get there. On the flip side, there is a reality of, sometimes we're not in the right financial position, or sometimes we have families. Sometimes there are things that can inhibit our focus for good reason, and you almost have to you have to strategically think several degrees in separation, and put yourself in a place where you're thinking, well, if I can execute on this, eventually it will let me get there. And I will say, like, I'm a victim of that too, and it's hard to properly assess. But at the end of the day, nothing can shake the truth of pure mentality. And that's where, when you're thinking through how many degrees of separation there are between what you want and what you know you should be doing to how you're actually living, um, the hard truth is that it's artificial, and that's just that. You can't move away from that. And so I don't know, like, I'm still trying to figure it out too. Like, it's certainly a privilege to be able to think in a totally pure mindset. But I would say the next best thing to do is to very forcefully prioritize. Because, like, if the first step is recognizing that you're not aligned between your heart and your mind and your action, that's already huge. Just having that knowledge is like a huge first step that a lot of people don't do. Okay, this is what makes me happy. This is what I want. That's step one. Step two is, okay, well, I have all of these things, all of these efforts. My attention is totally split between, like, two jobs, and I'm moonlighting, and then I have family which I have to account for a certain percentage of time and effort. The second step, simply, to me, is to prioritize, is to sit down and say, okay, family means a lot to me, and in my career and in what I want, whether it's 2 degrees separated or not, I got to do this to get there. Whether you're thinking like that or not, or, I'm just going to jump and try to get there. however you take it, you can just start to cull that and curate and tell yourself, these are the priorities of my life. And I feel like that would kind of put you in a position to be the most effective. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's just that step 1 and 2, I don't think a lot of people take. So it's not to say like speaking um, in an ethereal way and about philosophies of life, it's fucking difficult to put it into action. Like a lot of us can think and speak this way, but um, behaving and living this way is a whole nother game. But and I think it's a battle. It's like something that you have to do often, every day. Like we forget everything that we're doing. We forget 90% of the things we hear. And
Yeah.
so simply to just stop yourself every day, center on who you are, what makes you happy, and thirdly, looking at okay, all the bullshit that's in life and being like, okay, I can't get around the bullshit, but I can prioritize in a way that aligns most to these first things. And just doing that all the time, making sure that the efforts that you put in as a designer, as a man or woman, wife or husband, like everything is in accordance to how you want to live, right? So
Yeah. Wow. That's some very, very great advice, Daniel. And it's definitely not what I was bargaining for before I answered your call.
not advice. Like I don't mean to be lectury or anything. It's just
No,
I
no,
have a
no,
very
no, no,
strong way of
no.
living, and
You
yeah.
don't. No, do not. Don't apologize. Don't apologize. It's a gift, a welcome gift. So thank you very much, Daniel. Listen, tell me a little bit about Forma and who you like, who's all involved and basic and what you guys do.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, long story short, Forma started as a design consultancy. It was just a way for me to connect a network of all of the designers and friends that we've come to know and be able to take jobs from major brands and jump those jobs around so there's no conflict of interest. And it was just really a way for us to be stronger as a team because there's no unions and for designers, right? So, but if we band together, we can effectively raise the equity of what we do, right? So that's how it started, and how it is now is, there's a lot of the core people that are still here that collectively there's experience at, Porsche, GM, some of the electric brands, and I'm gonna be a little careful here, but
No, that's
collectively
okay.
quite a bit
Yes.
of experience, and we've kind of gone full force into building what we now call key pieces. And the cool thing about, I guess, why we're so banked into this is because as a product, there's just a couple of things that completely set it apart, right? Because a key for one in its core is like one of the most individualized products out there. And in a world where, we have full access to the internet and we can get anything anytime we want, information, product, whatever, we've kind of shifted as a community from kind of like sheeping, where if you're in your, little village and you see like the guy with some Nikes, and then two other cool people have Nikes. You're like, ooh, I want to jump on that, in that train because I also want to be cool with Nikes. But now it's like you can go online and be like, wow, there's like all of these types of Nikes. Well, I want to be special, right? And so like the whole consumer mentality is totally flipping where now you're not buying into a product to go into a tribe. you are curating the products in your life to represent your lifestyle and your values. And I love that. I love that. And I think that's how it should be, not just consumption for the sake of consumption. And so that's the cool thing. Just keys in itself, it's like you have this really individual element to it, and it's cut to function with something you love if you're a car guy. And it doesn't mean it has to be like, you know, we make keys for 911s, but it doesn't have to be this like super iconic car design. It could be, you know, the truck that your grandpa passed down to your dad, passed down to you. And that's where I was like, you know, there is a really cool emotional element to this that I just appreciate. And a lot of like objects, they don't hold that. You know, like a bottle of water doesn't hold that. Even if you make the coolest, you know, thermos or hydro flask, not to knock on them, I use them all the time, but there isn't like a pathway to make it a sentimental thing. And that's why, for one, at the core of it, I was like, wow, this has utility, function, it's individualized. It's just been missing the design and the storytelling, you know? And I tell this analogy all the time, but that's what I like about the wedding ring. I think when you're single, and I was one of these, I was always like, why do I have to buy, you know, a freaking rock for so much money, this and that? And when you find your significant other, you understand. Like, okay, there's like this whole marketing thing that had been built around it, and it's a culture, or it's a westernized thing, or it serves capitalism, whatever. But at the end of the day, when you're at home with someone you love, you want to commemorate that and symbolize it. And that's okay. And it's okay. And for someone that was so rooted skeptically and seeing the world for how it works, I totally flipped on it. And I'm like, you know, I will buy the nicest wedding ring I can because I love my wife, you know? And that's what I like about these things. I love cars. I know a lot of people love cars. There's all these different tribes and cultures. And I'm like, man, I want to make that symbol, you know, that symbol that does represent your appreciation for however you appreciate the car, whether it's in the design, in the sentiment of the memories, whatever. And so that's where it came from, and that's like what we all believe in, and how I've been able to gather such immense talent that I certainly don't deserve, you know, out of what I've done in my own life. You know, I'm just super grateful that we have these awesome people surrounding us and pushing for us and rooting for us. Um, and yeah, and that's the kind of the brand mantra. And hopefully, as we continue to grow and um, not only produce more of these key piece designs for all types of cars, like that's going to be our core product, but we'll carry that philosophy of unlocking value and experiences and treasures, and kind of applying our design efforts and philosophies to just the whole lifestyle that surrounds this stuff. And there's quite a lot of fun things to do. I was talking with our engineer the other day, and it's just, there's a lot of just like fun little innovation spaces. Like, hey, you know, all these old cars, they have really shitty map lights and dome lights. Like, what if we machined a really nice titanium flashlight and it's able to be like mounted as a piece of jewelry, like how the 911 guys have those lap timers on the dash? And I'm like, dude, this is like, it's so fun, because you just start to think, how can we make experiences more visceral and valuable and bring utility to it, bring design to it, you know?
I don't know of anyone else that's doing what you guys are doing. I'm sure there is, but I mean, I think it's almost genius. I mean, it's not. It is genius that you guys have picked up on that, because it's such a fucking, like, when you've just mentioned the fact of how unique a key is. Like, of course it is, of course it is, and yeah, I think it's a stroke of genius, an absolute stroke of genius.
That's so humbling. Thank you. You know, we're not that smart. You know, we stumbled across these things just living our lives and trying to enjoy it. You know, so thank you. It's super humbling and yeah.
Daniel, was there like was there a specific moment where you were asking yourself a series of questions, or an incident happened where the penny dropped and you were like, that we're going to do a key?
Um, I mean, I could make this crazy story, but like
Yeah,
I
you
said,
should. No.
no, the honest truth is, um, I had a 930 and I fucking hated the key, and I'm not in the car all the time. I'm not like living in the car, and I was like, I wish I could be reminded of the, you know, that what I drive. Like that thing is freaking cool. Like I want to put it on my desk and feel good about it, you know. And I want it to align with the design philosophy of that era in an honest way. Like I want this thing to be a little materialized poem, like sitting in my hand or on the desk. So the way it started, it was very honest to God, straightforward. But there was a moment where like I had to mentally decide, like, you know, like maybe this is where I could uh, bring something new to the world. And that was honestly like right as the pandemic was starting. Um, I had an opportunity to continue growing in the furniture design space because I had jumped from Oakley, and it was a good opportunity. And on the flip side, I also had an opportunity to work with Specialized, which makes, you know, the top end cycling bikes, you know, which I'm sure you're familiar with. And so I had that
Yeah,
moment
yeah,
where,
100%. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I just had like a crossroads, like, ooh, these are some really fun career opportunities and they're paying well, and the CEO at Specialized is saying, come here, like I'll give you 2 bikes. No, do you want 3 bikes? And I'm like, oh my god, I do. But you know, I had to stop and be a man of my word. Like as I've been explaining to you, I had to stop and think, well, is this gonna make me happy to like I'll jump to another corporate position, climb the ladder, make impact within their product portfolio. And I just kept thinking about the key, and I kept thinking, man, I don't know, this might be impossible, but I believe in it. It's like it's a commodity now, and like to shift that perspective and bring value into an area that hadn't had it before. It's a monumental task. It's freaking scary, but um, it was at that end of 2020, beginning of 2021. I had all of these inflection points. I had people reaching out from Europe, automotive brands reaching out to me, investors reaching out to me, and there was just so many kind of pings that, hey, you know, take the risk. There's a lot of belief in what you're doing, and you believe it too. There's like that little voice inside where my brain was like, no, but how are you gonna make money if it fails? Or how are you gonna do this? Or how are you gonna provide? Or you should be lengthening your corporate career. You're still young. You need to do this and this and this. And then it was totally misaligned with my heart, which was like, no, there's something here, and you should believe in it. Take take a big risk and give it a shot, because at least you'll know you did. And it took a lot of discipline up here, but that was that penny dropping, which is okay. I'll make the call. And since beginning of 21 till now is like when we've taken Forma seriously, and focused with our core product and focused with our brand message, and yeah.
Uh, can you just give me an indication, like how many people are working with you?
So we have about 6 people kind of constantly working with us. We have 2 designers that are like fully on board, and then maybe about 4 to 6 that we'll contract with because they're all, major car designers. So we'll throw them like some fun projects on our end here and there. We have an engineer that's from Oakley that went to aerospace and worked on fighter jets and stuff. So he's our left brain to our manufacturing operation, as well as another engineer that's leading um, some of our new product R&D, and he's uh, he's built the race cars on Pikes Peak, the winning ones from last year. I
Wow.
think I'm allowed to say that. So yeah, yeah, and then we've got some guys in Europe that are also how do I say this generally? Just great leaders in design for one, and the engineer on that side, he produces like assembly lines for major German automotive brands. So the skill set is there, the pedigree's there. So um, it'll be a matter of how we can execute. That's where I'll leave it.
Okay, Daniel, I want to try and ask this question in a way that can bring the most value to somebody else wanting to take a product and or develop a product into a business.
Okay.
You there's no doubt. So there's no doubt that there's a demand for the beautiful things that you make. What
Okay.
sort of calculations are you doing to say, okay, we're gonna this key, the prices of your keys are on the website. I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but let's just use a ballpark and say we're gonna charge $400 a key. And what sort of calculations are you making to say I can build a business here with not just myself, but with a few other people involved? How do you rationalize that to yourself?
That's a great question. So we'll start with the products. The product pricing is based on a standard uh, retail model. So we look at the time involved to design, develop, prototype, CAD. We look at all of the R&D, make sure we can kind of amortize that over a lifetime of selling a product, as well as the hard costs of material and how long it takes to machine. Like, I don't think people, in fact, here, working with on a new machine, and I don't know if you can see this, but uh,
Oh
it's
wow.
kind of hard to tell. It's
Yeah.
kind of hard to tell on camera, but um, this is machined by the same 5-axis mill that Rolex uses. And so, like, that's the hard material and manufacturing costs. Is like when you're using a 5-axis mill that's running like 40,000 RPM, you making one key at a time. There's certain costs involved. And so, when we amortize all of the effort to get the product to market across the lifetime of a product on market, and also add in all of the hard manufacturing costs as well as packaging and shipping, then you just apply a multiplier on it for a retail cost so that we can continue to sustain the operations. So that's just basic business 101. So that's like a core thing that I think logistically you should be doing. But the flip side is also like there's a bit of a risk that you take because you believe in something, right? And the risk is it can be managed. Like we will look at how many cars are still in existence in the world out of all of the ones that we think are cool, and what percentage of people are like actually value them like we do, and like we can come up with business models, but um, it's really like a self pat on the back at that point, because the flip side of it is if you really believe in it yourself, believe in what you're creating and producing. So I would say, to answer your question of, what would be the best advice for someone that wants to produce something of their own, and I'm sure a lot of car designers that we know or are listening to this are thinking, yeah, there's plenty of stuff I want to make and build. I would say you got to do those two things. You got to left brain realistically calculate the effort, the time, the value of your time, cost of the product, cost of shipping. Look at all of that out and see if on a retail model you can price it to a point where people will find it still valuable. And on the right half of it, think about if you really believe in it. And if it's not just like in a file cabinet in your head to be like a get rich quick scheme, because those don't work. Like, yeah, to build a product, to build a brand, people see through authenticity like that, especially these days. So you have to also be that filter to yourself and say, okay, do I really believe in it? Yeah.
I think like that's really useful information, and it provides a hell of a lot of value with regard to answering some of those questions. I think I'm also interested in the like working out what sort of scale you intend for your business to be, because like looking from afar, I don't know anything about that market, but I do know that there are some very irrational people that want to spend money on stuff like this. Not some, there are a lot of people in the world that would like to, and I would consider myself one of them as well. In fact, I want to go buy a car right now just so I can buy the key. But but like it's working out. Is this going to be? I read a great book called I don't have it here. I need to get it out, but it's called small. I think it's called Small Giants. It's a book that Tim Ferriss is a big fan of, and it basically is a book. It's designed. The book is about it's a case study of a series of businesses that choose to be a certain size. They never want to be this big monster corporation, but they still a total powerhouse in their with regard to they still do a pretty seriously healthy turnover. They still got quite a few people people working for them. But they choose not to be, there's plenty of opportunity for them to accept corporate investments, etc., to grow, but they want to stay at a certain size because of authenticity. But even at which is what you were talking about, but even at that level, you're still talking about a pretty big operation. And I have to say that I was kind of very pleasantly surprised to hear at I know it might seem like you're a small operation, but you still have quite a few people involved, and it's a really, really inspiring thing to hear, and it's I guess, and that's a really complicated way of saying, like, how did you know that? Like, was the temptation in the beginning not to just go, I'm going to try and do everything on myself to try and save as much money in the beginning, and slowly but surely enlist the services of other people?
That's a very interesting question.
Sorry, Daniel, and again, super fucking complicated. But
No, it's not.
but I think I had to kind of vomit all of that stuff out of my head to ask that final simple question. So yeah.
It's let's see.
Are you guys still consulting as well to supplement
No.
the growth?
We halted that completely.
Wow.
Sort of, because we kind of transferred that kind of energy into doing like bespoke projects, but for key pieces, because it continues to support the major vision of what we're doing. So what I mean by that is like we'll do stuff for some of the larger collectors and the cars that are like the one of the 10 or one of the 20 in the world, where if we went for like a commercial opportunity, it wouldn't bring us a lot of value. So we just take it as like a creative opportunity where we can have some fun and continue to support the brand. So it's sort of shifted. And to answer your question, that's the ongoing battle. You know, like when you're a designer or a self-starter, which the self-starting part, it needs to be 1000% a part of who you are to build something, to build a business, to sell, to design and sell products. Like you have to be willing to be able to do everything. Like I will happily go pack and ship or talk to people on Instagram and then sit down and design and then go source and meet with people overseas, or not so much with COVID anymore, but I'd happily put all those hats on. And a lot of entrepreneurs and designers who are doing this are going to understand exactly what I'm saying. So that part is a given. But to answer the second part of your question, like how do you know when you can start to delegate or pull in different skill sets? It's that part, again, it's going to be your self-awareness of your qualities, like your strengths and weaknesses. And that's a hard thing for designers, because I want to be right all the fucking time, right? I want my judgment to be the best judgment. But living life and coming to understand your own hubris and understand, you know, there are people who are better than me at these things. There are people who are smarter than me at these things. It's like a huge thing to lay down the pride, but it's necessary to be able to build bigger, because you're stronger with teams. You're stronger when you surround yourself with people who are smarter than you. Like that's what my boss at Oakley would tell me all the time, and it's been like ingrained into me. Surround yourself with people who are smarter than you, with people that you respect, with people who understand certain things like marketing or finances or even design. Like my right-hand guy, Ed, who's like the creative architect for the brand, like I will unashamedly say like he is a way better designer than me. And not to say like I'm like not useful. Like we have to bounce back and forth to like have vision, understanding of the business landscape, and I bring my design perspective in all the time. But to let that ego go and understand, oh, you know, these people, they're excellent at these things. Like to me, that's what it takes to build something, is to be able to think like that, to be able to think in a way where you can scale for one, but you can respect and love and build a team around you. I don't know. Does that answer your question? It's
Yeah. No. It totally does. I mean, it's just, you know, these are that it definitely answers at least one part of what I'm asking. I'm also, you know, there's the obvious the obvious anchor that stops a lot of people from doing the things that you've done, and that's money. And
Hmm.
the financial commitment to doing something like you doing, there's always, in the beginning, there's got to be some degree of bootstrapping involved. And
Correct.
it's like I've a friend of mine has got a watch brand, and that it's him and his partner, and like I don't, as far as I know, they've got like one other person that they work with, but everything else is kind of, they might outsource things here and there, but for the most part they do everything themselves. Now,
Yeah.
like, it's not it's and they've got a pretty fucking successful business. But I like, how did you, like, what,
Mm.
I mean, you, without pride, I don't want to, like, I want to be respectful, and I don't want to
Sure.
pry too much.
No,
Is there
no.
anything that you can share with regard to that?
Yeah, yeah. That's a really good question. So again, I'm gonna give a left brain, right brain answer, but left brain is you do need finances to get started. Maybe that's like the um, what you were talking about earlier. Well, I want to get there, so I need to work towards it. There's certainly some of that on my end, which is I had to save a lot of liquid from the corporate jobs for one. Um, Definitely bootstrapped with family. Like my wife's been helping quite a bit too. Like so it takes people that believe in what you're doing as well as your own commitment and financial discipline as well. Like that's a very necessary starting point. Um, but flipping to the right brain side, what I've learned doing this and being a young or relatively young entrepreneur and trying to run business is that not everything costs money for one, especially if there is a strong vision. Um, and what I mean by that is maybe in the form of advice is to say that there's a lot of creative ways to build. Um, and I'll be transparent. Like for me, I'm not trying to be this like dictator of some gigantic business at the end of the day. One of the early designers that was with us said it clearly that it hasn't shaken from my heart, which is I want to be able to enjoy the work that I do and be surrounded by people that I love. And that's what I want the business to be. And so what I mean by, oh, there's a lot of creative ways to build. Um, you can do it with a team and you can respect the team and share with the team. And I don't know if you can read between the lines there, but I think in the modern day and age, that's the right way to do it. Is you pull people you believe in, you work with them, you know. Um, yeah, and for example, I'll tell you like we have our European side of operations now, and uh, any logical, place of business would state that hey, if they're distributing in Europe, then you put a premium on your core product price, and so that you're profiting as the core company, and they distribute like that's a standard business model. But I saw that the guys that reached out from Europe, they were like our European counterparts. Like it was like looking in the mirror in terms of how much passion there was. And so instead of starting off the relationship with us saying, hey, uh, buy a bulk load of our stuff and you guys figure out how to sell it, like that's not how it happened. It was like, hey, I believe in you and you guys believe in us. We'll share inventory and at our cost. like, let's get it going. And if you guys can do it, then awesome. So there was no cost on their end to start. And then on top of that, as they were building, it was more like, hey, take that profit and think about like how to create more cool content or designs, like feed it back in, you know. And that's, I think that's where, you know, I give that example because when you're trying to build something like by the books, it's really hard. Everything costs money. Everything's expensive. Like it's so hard to get off the ground. Um, and so, yeah, I think like long story short, my simple advice is yes, like left side of the brain, you need something to get started and figure that out, whatever that is. Bootstrap if you need to, save from the corporate job, absolutely necessary. Right side of the brain is from a company of our size to the big boys out there. At the end of the day, you're working with people and you're working with hopefully a group of people that you enjoy being around or you can have mutually beneficial relationships. And when you think about it that, hey, you're just working with a group of people, then you can be creative. You can figure out ways that work so everyone can grow successfully. And so that is the big mental unlock, I would say. If you're afraid that it's a money thing, but you really believe in what you're doing and you have enough to get started, take the jump and you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised how much people believe in you and are willing to put their effort together, you know? So yeah.
That's that's brilliant advice. That's great advice, Daniel. Um, what is the process of somebody getting, so they order a key from you, they say like I really like that design. What is the process with regard to getting it working on their vehicle? How does it work?
Yeah, so we have our Legends line, which are like the keys that we specifically um, build
Wow.
the keyway to a specific car that we consider an icon, right? From a designer's eye. And each of those designs are like tailor crafted suits. Like they will work uh, for that car or that generation of cars, and the designs are all correlated specifically. So for anyone with like a 911 or a Defender or a Land Cruiser or an FD, if you just select that design, then it'll work. Like you can go to your local locksmith, or we also have that service where you
Ah,
can send your key in and we'll send you something fully functional. We're working on an app-based thing to make it a little bit easier, but that would be the process for our Legend stuff. And our new product line called Open Spec, this is how it looks unprocessed. Um, and it's still like
Jesus.
this, you know, precision machined, CNC machined thing. And, you know, there's a proprietary watch screw that we've designed to hold these things. And really, these are a whole different system where per unit we are machining we're facing the thickness as well as we have a database of all the different keyways because each key shape is different for a lot of vehicles, right? So we have that database and we're able to build these, like pretty much build these bespoke to a relatively commercial level. And that's what open spec is. And the beauty of this is like now, you know, we can serve the customers that maybe like the recent one we're doing is for the Quattro, right? There's like low numbers on the Quattro. So from a business perspective, if we had built a Legends key, like it would start to sink us. Like we wouldn't be able to keep doing this. And so we had to think, well, how do we build a system where we can do onesie twosies for all the cool cars out there or cars of sentimental value or the guy in South Africa that loves his GTI, right? Like we get those guys all the time. So it's like, how can we serve that? And so that's why we came up with this system. Um, and it'll let you pick your design because they're all attached through the screw method. So we're going to do different themes. Like this was our DTM design, um, to honor all of the German, boxy era of German cars in the 80s. But we'll basically just be executing on different themes and eras, and we're doing an Italian thing with a watch brand right now, and there's some fun stuff in the works. So the point there was to give choice and design as well as functionality, and so that's how that works. You
So
can pick a legend. Yeah, go ahead.
no. But ultimately, you pick a key and you can get it. You can get it cut at your local locksmith.
Yeah, when you're duplicating, correct. And
Right.
so,
Okay.
yeah, ultimately, you can get a key, at least right now, anything kind of like pre-transponder era. So, like, roughly any vehicle before the year 2000, we can build you a key for.
Wow.
Pretty much anything. So, and we're working, like, our R&D and our next steps is to do all the modern stuff and fobs and some crazy, like, titanium 3D printed pendants for fobs, and like, yeah, like everything's in the works.
So Daniel, that you guys kind of started going at it hard basically a year ago.
Correct.
When did you sell your first key?
I sold the first key, I think 2018, and it was a very just like a passion project operation where we would just build really small batches for friends and family that were interested, or like the Nissan guys that all have 911s, we had a lot of earlier on, we had a lot of like design chiefs, and I will not go into specifically, but there's just a lot of people in the car world, that wanted what we were doing, and that's how we started. Sold the first one back then, and just did very sporadic small batches. Um, yeah, and then
So
since
that's
then, yeah.
no. Sorry, I shouldn't have cut you off. Carry on.
No, no, no worries. It's just so since then we've been able to like do it a little bit more properly, and be able to fulfill inventory and like build batches consistently. And that's the thing. Like I don't think people realize, this isn't like an easy thing to mass produce. Like we're not making tools and injection molding and plastic and just pumping these things out for cents on the dollar. Like these are, it's high quality material. It's like literally like watchmaking techniques. It takes forever to build each thing, and um, so it's like kind of a product where we can scale, but it can get out of control if we're not careful and we're not like watching it and making sure the quality's there. So, but that's the way that we like it, right? So,
So Daniel, that's I guess that's probably also quite a useful thing to share then as well. Is that like you almost had a proof of concept in a way before going at it full hog, like
oh,
you
absolutely.
so that's definitely great. Great to know that's it's like you don't have to go and legally set up an entity and go like full bore before you've even
No,
sold
no, no.
anything.
Yeah, there's when you're doing a 9 to 5, maybe plus 2 or 3 hours per day, because designers like to work hard. But um, when you're doing a 9 to 5, like there's plenty of time to do proof of concepts. Like I had the car, we had the machine, we tested like all these different materials. I wish I can pick up the camera because I kept the design progression of the original, like the first 911 key, and we started like in aluminum and then brass, and that was too soft, and then we went steel, and that was too hard, and we backed up into stainless steel, and then cycle tested, and like it. there's a whole journey to like the first proof of concept that I think you can take relatively safely um, while you're still moon mining, for sure.
Wow. And then and by proof of concept, I'm also talking about the demand for the product, because as you highlighted, you guys had also not only produced these things, but you had also sold them in like small limited batches here and there. So I guess you had already
Correct.
seen that there was some interest in it.
I had seen that there was interest in it very organically, because especially when we started, um, we had more sales than our following should indicate, which is a very healthy thing. And so it started to ping on us that, I think we've built a pretty good product here, because there's not that many people that follow us, but we're still getting sales. It means there's word of mouth. It means like there's cars and coffees where people are sharing what we do. So there was a little bit of a proof of concept, and um, like a like a heartwarming, like, okay, maybe we're doing something right in the beginning. And then definitely later on, as we were being approached by some of the big boys who had done their homework, um, it was just continual validation that, okay, like there is a market, and it's possible. It's not easy to change people's minds and to create something new of emotional value, but um, there is a cap and there is a space for it. Like if we can do it, there is, So yeah, little bit of like personal validation, and then validation from uh, much smarter people out there. Put it that way.
And Daniel, have you guys tried before you landed on the key? Did you try anything else? Was there anything else that you had in mind, product wise?
Uh, we we did. We had a lot of different ideas that we wanted to consider bringing to market when we were just doing design consultant work, because that's the beauty of it, is like when you're able to work on so many brands and products, you just end up you end up understanding how to make things, right? So um, but that's the thing, is like in the beginning it was totally just like get rich quick mentality, right? Like, oh, we
Yes,
have these skill
yes.
sets, like we know how to
We should
execute, like,
capitalize.
yeah, we should capitalize, we should pull on our equity. um, but it has a strange and funny way of self-culling, meaning like you end up not having as much passion for something, like the passion that it requires, the late nights and that term of burning the midnight oil, like you end up not having that energy, that follow through, when it's just like rooted in something very superficial like that. So like
Yes.
and it's a testament to like our Dropbox is a testament to that, because there's like a shit ton of these projects where we're like, ooh, like this would be a great market opportunity. Like we just need to design on it and this and that. Like we're human. I'm not ashamed to like to share like that's how we thought for some things. Um, but a lot of it, like I said, it didn't come to market because we couldn't follow through or like have the energy to like figure out every step, right? So yeah, I mean,
That was
yes, there were a lot of different ideas. Um, but it all happened in a funny way where it ended up having to be authentic for it to work, you know.
Dude, I could pick your brains at random fucking questions all night, and I have to say that I I really enjoyed this, Daniel. I got a lot out of it. I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of people that will as well. And dude, you guys are doing beautiful stuff. And I will when I when I get my car, I will definitely be getting a key from you.
For sure, for sure. Just reach out, and yeah, it's been such a pleasure. I'm certainly honored just looking at your hit list of all of these like monumental movers and car design. I have to say, I was a little intimidated at first, but I'm glad to see that you're reaching out to our core community and just kind of having a diverse portfolio as well. It makes me happy. There's a lot of car guys out there that want to try something different, and I want to be the first to say like that's okay. And there's a lot of product guys who wanted to be in cars and circumstances weren't right, and there's still a way back. So like either
But
way.
that's exactly the point, and that's also why I wanted to have this kind of diverse range of people for both of those reasons, you know, because and many more, you know, for those reasons you've mentioned, but also, you know, it might also be that, you know, some kids just finished university and he can't get his dream OEM job, and in the short term he thinks like my life is over, and actually like there's all this fucking great opportunity there if you just can step back and zoom out a little bit. And like conversations like this one specifically, it's invaluable, and I can only thank you for sharing everything so openly and candidly. So thanks a lot, Daniel. It was awesome, dude.
Of course, you're too kind, and thank you for having me. It was a great pleasure. I love having dense conversations. So
Cool. Thank you.